Who are we talking to and why are we here today?
We are talking to, I don't want to say everyone and sound too broad, but the reason why I say that is because we are about to address how to spot if you may, without even realize it, be in a manipulative or abusive dynamic. And this is super, super common, as we know. And why I say everyone is because it's come to my attention, and I was also one of these people that out there, people are unaware that they're in this. And also there are people that are probably onlookers or friends or, part of their support network who don't know the signs of this, so aren't able to help the people that are in it. And then there are people that would be able to support and protect people that are in an unhealthy dynamic. So we all actually need to be aware of this. But mainly who I'm talking to is past version of me that didn't know I was in something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really a cultural dynamic and kind of a cultural, like almost shift in relating and building awareness that we're talking about.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it affects everyone. It affects all of us, no matter where we kind of sit in this dynamic. Yeah.
100%.
And
but also, like I think we were talking about earlier as well, I think it's really important to shift from that victim perpetrator dynamic and putting all the focus on the, abuser in this dynamic, and rather on how can we become aware of the patterns and how can we be so powerful in ourselves, so aware that we can't be controlled or manipulated. So the focus for me when talking about this, and we've had so many conversations about how to position this because it's such tricky territory.
Yeah.
Like there's so many layers, and we want to be sensitive to the trauma and struggles of victims and people that have been in this situation. But at the same time, recognizing our own power is also the way through. So it's like, how can we talk about it in a way that shifts the narrative from maybe what's commonly out there right now?
Yeah. And I think a good place to start with that as well is like, what is the difference between an abuse cycle, an abusive relationship, and like what's getting thrown around a lot of like, oh, my ex is a narcissist, or like so-and-so is being so abusive. Like, how do we actually know the difference between like, what is an abuse cycle? And then maybe what do you think are some of the misconceptions that are kind of floating around right now?
Definitely. So I think like we were saying earlier in the car on the way here, it's like that term narcissist is thrown around constantly. So if someone's dissatisfied in their relationship, or someone's, let's not forget there are also people out there that are kind of just sticks, or they have difficult personalities, but the real distinction between that type of person, like someone that is capable of abuse, someone that intentionally controls and manipulates, versus someone who maybe has a challenging personality. Look, we're all not perfect, we're all different. Like, it's actually very distinct. My hot take on this is that there are people that are kind of just difficult and maybe they're not the nicest people, but they're very honest about it. And their intent, their operating system isn't designed around how can we control and manipulate other people. Their operating system is very different. They're just like, kind of, I'm an asshole and I own it. Whereas in my experience working with a lot of people that are the narcissistic person in this kind of dynamic, they're very clever manipulators, so often will present as the nice person or the nice guy. And the intent is different, and how we can really know for sure whether we're in a relationship with someone that is a bit of a challenging personality or we don't really like, or it's just part of the normal repertoire of relationship challenges, versus we are in fact in a toxic abusive dynamic, is a couple things. So first of all, I want to say I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but I am someone with lived experience who's been through this myself a lot. So I think I have a PhD in it as far as I'm concerned. There are two things. First of all, there's a cycle. So if you notice pattern and a cycle that is in the 4 phases, which we can talk about some more, where there's a distinct feeling of this tension building towards a crescendo of some sort of incident, let's just call it. And then afterwards, there's the kind of repair, but it's very has a certain tone. It's a lot of, groveling and promises and things. It's not a normal repair dynamic. And then the honeymoon phase where things are just so good. When it's bad, it's bad. When it's good, it's good. There's a cycle, there's a pattern. But the main thing is also recognizing the impact on you. So if you are feeling very confused perpetually, riddled with self-doubt, always feel like you're walking on eggshells, making a step wrong, so much energy is spent in hypervigilance and managing the response of the other person, and you are slowly feeling more isolated and like you have fewer freedoms and you are self-censoring and suppressing. A lot of this is to do with the impact it has on you. So as opposed to any normal, say you have an argument or disagreeing with someone or you have personality clashes, that happens all the time. We're all different human beings. But if this is something that is actually damaging you on a psychological level and affecting your quality of life and your autonomy and making you close down, and we can talk about more symptoms and behaviors you can pinpoint, that's really how you spot it. It's not in the individual events of one time this person yelled at me. Okay, but in the context of the cycle, that's how you spot this is a dynamic.
Mm-hmm. So in an abusive dynamic, you're in the constant cycle. Is that
Yes.
as opposed to in we'll say healthy relationship? There would be like a healthier baseline, a more neutral baseline, like in a healthy dynamic, a more like loving and supportive baseline. And then there would be like moments and chapters and phases of challenges, but they would be like resolved and to come back to that healthy baseline. Whereas in an abusive dynamic, you're in that constant cycle of tension building, eruption, and then like a kind of intense repair and sweetness again until the tension starts to build again. Is that?
Exactly. It's high highs, low lows, emotional roller coaster. And even in the so-called times of the good times, there's always a subtle undercurrent of the abuse. It's not like it just stops. It's actually ever present, but it can be so subtle.
Yeah.
And this is where people get stuck in it.
Yeah. And I'm curious for you, like speaking from your lived experience, what might have like been signs that you were in that cycle, but how did you see them then, right? Like, because you can't see them at first, right? You're just in it. And so you expect that is a normal relationship. Or did you have an idea that something was off? Like,
yeah, both. So, and this is why it's such a nuanced experience, because once you've been through it, you really get it.
Yeah.
And then you can spot it in others. But you do have this internal feeling something's off, and this will be in the body. This will be just your felt sense of this isn't quite right. Your body's signaling that to you all the time, but because you've been so conditioned through this cycle of manipulation to gaslight yourself and second guess yourself and being chronic self-doubt, you learn to override your own instincts.
What were some example moments of that where like something happened where now looking back, you're like, what the fuck was that? But at the time you were like, this is just like, or you might have even covered up the cycle yourself. Like do you have some key kind of memories of that?
So many. There are so many micro and macro expressions of this. So, and before I go into that, it's I don't know if you've heard of that frog in boiling water analogy, but you're the frog in a pot that's getting boiled. You don't realize because it's so gradual over time building, and then suddenly you're boiling and that's it. You're cooked. Similar thing here. So some examples of what can be normalized very quickly. Well, all
Mhm.
of it can be normalized,
Yeah, or
first of
even
all.
things you've seen in maybe like friends or other
How to spot
situations.
it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also like really common. That's what I'm curious about. I'm kind of like,
Mm.
what is the common stuff that someone would just say to
Yeah.
me and I wouldn't even clock that, or I might get a little feeling or a little tension, but I wouldn't actually
Yeah.
be able to be like, hold on, like repeat to me what you just said and let's like unpack that for a moment. Like what
Yes.
are kind of some examples which might seem normal, which you might have covered up or
Yes.
people might be covering up, but you kind of, once you become aware and you
Yeah.
trace back, you're like, that was clearly abuse and I couldn't see it at the time. What are some little
Yeah.
examples of like things like that?
Yes. And such a good question, because when you're in it, you don't realize. And then it takes somebody else to point that out to you, which I had happen. I had friends call me and say, hey, by the way, this isn't normal. But so some examples of that are things are also subtly masked as help or care. So,
Mhm.
for example, doing a lot for you because they care and want to help you, but it always comes with strings attached or can be weaponized later. Or they
So,
might,
like, what examples of that be that could seem caring, but they're actually coming from
from a
different.
place,
Yeah.
it's sort of the things in and of themselves can be benevolent because we want to do things for people we love. But if it's excessive and you're like, oh, well, this is great, but then later it's pulled up as in, look at everything I do for you, or
Right.
it's with strings attached so that they can get you to comply to an unreasonable request based on things they've done for you. And another example of this is monitoring and just excessive phone calls and touch points and excessive, it can be subtle or overt monitoring of who you're talking to, where you are. They need to know every detail at all times. They might even kind of show up there or hang around with
Mm.
unprompted.
Yes. So it can seem caring of like, I'm just checking in on you, but
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
it's past that point of just genuine care and
Yeah.
curiosity
Yeah.
and like, yeah,
Yeah.
wanting to check in on you. It's actually moved
Yeah.
into a monitoring for their own like
Yeah.
control or
To let you know they're always watching and they can, and that, the difference because if you feel it.
Mhm.
So it's in your gut almost, it's in your body, and you have this sort of like a little bit of tightness, like you're being watched in case you do something wrong.
Yep.
So you always feel like you're in danger of doing something wrong. So you begin to self-monitor.
Mhm.
And this can go to a pretty extreme level, by the way. Um, and this can be, them calling you at work or calling you way too many times in the day that's considered normal. And then they disguise it as they just love you and care about you and they just want to be with you the whole time, and dominate all of your time and make it very difficult for you to see family and friends. And they mask it as, oh, I just want to be around you.
Mhm.
Um, it's not always like that. There's so many different types of dynamics. Sometimes it's very aggressive and overt. Other times it's covert. So they won't specifically say you can't do this, but they'll make it incredibly difficult for you to do that, or they'll engineer some assured drama prior to you leaving the house or something so that you can't go and then you can't say anything. So it just puts you in this awkward position. There's also just subtle digs at your self-worth, so backhanded compliments or is sort of really subtly undermining your sense of self. Also gaslighting, we've heard this so much, but saying that didn't happen, or no, you're just being dramatic, or you're too sensitive, or they might make fun of you in a, we all like to laugh and joke, but the way that they do it is in a way that um, is often in front of other people to humiliate you. So it's, even when I'm speaking this out, it can be very subtle.
Mhm. What would an example be of like
So, for example, you've told them something in confidence in private, which kind of is pretty innocent. It's not like, it may not even be your biggest, deepest, darkest secret, but they'll
Mhm.
out that in front of a group of people and make fun of it.
Mm.
And you're kind of going, and everyone else is laughing because it's done in a way that's very intelligently crafted. And then you're feeling like I kind of told that to you
Yeah.
in confidence. I'm not really.
Yeah. So there's a real like well, there's no emotional care there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in a way that humiliates, or they might on the more severe scale, as you're getting towards the violent expressions of this dynamic, is they start to maybe belittle you, call you names that are derogatory, insults, or compare you to other people, or triangulate, or say, you know, my ex never would have done that. Or, you know, that, like something that just really gets you and you're like, oh my God. And then you have to try and,
like little digs.
yeah,
Like slowly turning up the
slowly.
temperature on the pot.
Yeah, exactly. Or just subtly. And a really important sign of this is excessive jealousy. So we're all human beings. We all have feelings and attachments towards people. We're all capable of jealousy if it's warranted, right? That's an ordinary human emotion. If there's consistent excessive jealousy, which is absolutely not founded or warranted for no reason, and it's like, wow, okay, and it's perpetual, that's a big red flag. Like that's not them just loving you and being obsessed with you. That's a problem. And also that will cause you to be hypervigilant and self-monitor constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are so many more. But
What was some, like, what helped you snap out? Like, if people had, if you had like some idea that attention was there, or people had maybe like said something to you, I don't know, was there a moment that really like where you realized what you were in? Or
I had a few forks in the road where I was seeing the light, but because I was in this cycle, I would then let that go and kind of try to forget about it.
Okay, so does that look like someone's like, hey, something doesn't seem right here, and you kind of like take it in, but then
You go, no, and then you're in denial because you're being manipulated. So then you're in denial. So then you are also told by the person that if you were to talk to anyone else about this, that would be a betrayal of their trust. So you're encouraged not to talk about it.
oh, so
with
you mean
anyone.
if you actually bring it to your partner who is the abuser in that situation, right? So you actually did you actually like try to address things, and then it would kind of get
Oh, yes,
swept?
that, but also if they would be either subtly or overtly weird about you talking about anything to do with your relationship with any family or friends, or even a professional.
Yeah, okay, so that's another red
That's
flag.
another red flag, that they know that what's going on is not normal, and they would prefer people not to know, but they position it as, just keep it between us two. Why do you have to talk about our private matters with a third party? Which is, all these things you'll notice is a pattern of that sounding pretty reasonable, right? Because it's like,
it's personal.
right? And you go, oh, okay, I guess it makes sense, even though
Yeah.
my gut's telling me something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, wait, we were on something else. So what
So
did you ask me?
we were talking about like that kind of waking up moment.
Yes,
from
how
like,
did I wake up out of this sleep?
Yeah.
There were moments of waking up where, okay, so just to go through the phases of the cycle briefly. So the tension building phase is when you can sense, you start walking on eggshells, there's tension building, you're getting in trouble for certain things. There's jealousy or monitoring, or they might, just all these things. And then that will build and build into some sort of macro outburst. On a micro level, there's that subtle undercurrent. Macro, there's some sort of violent outburst or incident or something which is like a main event where your whole system is rocked and you're like, oh my God, this is so terrible, right?
Yeah.
In those moments I go, okay, there's been a few step off points where I tried to then like get out. But then what happens is you get hooked back in with very, very convincing apologies. Can we
actually pause there? What's the difference between a real apology and
a fake
apology that just starts the cycle again?
And then we'll come back and answer your question because but a real apology results in change. So an apology without taking action to make those changes is just manipulation. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's so easy, and this is like the most annoying trick in the book, but apologizing and doing it in a way that is just, I'm so, so sorry, and I promise I'll change, and making all these promises, and even demonstrating the most startling crystal clear self-awareness. You go, oh my God, they really get it. Wow, great. It's good. I understand. And you're human and you have empathy. So you're like, okay, cool. We all make mistakes. Then the promise of change, and then you're hooked into, well, okay, I'll give you another chance. And then the more that happens, so the more you're like, well, not really seeing change here.
Do you think it's kind of necessary to actually go through a few rounds of that, as hard as it is, to like
Yeah.
determine that they're not going to change?
Yeah.
The action's not going to happen.
Exactly. And this can be a really long, painful process for a lot of people, because by the time they've realized that the cycle is repeated so many times.
Yeah.
And sometimes the cycle can be weeks, but it can be months and even years.
Yeah.
Where there's that place of seemingly homeostasis, but it's actually a subtle undercurrent still of the abuse. But then they have the honeymoon period. And sometimes those times are so good that you just want to throw out all the bad times and forget it. So you actually delete everything you wrote down. You like clear it out and go, okay, line in the sand, let's start new. This is
going to be good again.
Yeah. And then by the time they're in that, they've kind of compartmentalized that. And that's actually a thing, by the way, in psychology in your brain, like cognitive dissonance, and you put it into a little box in your brain and forget about it, because that's a survival strategy, because you want to sustain the relationship, because that's been your survival strategy likely from childhood to retain connection.
Yeah, it's security, connection, love. It's all linked up when you're in a long-term partnership.
That's it. And so you stay, and then you can, how I woke up was that cycle going on repeats so many times. And then those really, there were some very extreme and atrocious peak macro incidents that woke me up, because I would be like, okay, I would be crazy to stay with this. Even then it was a process after that where I would get back into gaslighting myself, and that's a whole process. So if you're listening to this and this is you, please be compassionate and gentle with yourself. It can take many, many times this to happen, and many times to try to leave. So it's I think it's important to say that.
And as friends and family members, and you know, like we all probably know someone who is in a cycle like this. So it's also a really good reminder to be able to call out what we see and feel is happening, and if we're noticing these dynamics, but also to have awareness that likely the cycle will need to continue a number of times for the person involved or people involved to gain awareness and then be able to take action. So to be that consistent kind of supportive, but also calling out what's happening, and then having compassion for them before they're ready to take action.
Exactly. As you said, just consistency, non-judgment, patience, compassion, but consistently still calling it out, because that's part of the awakening. And that was the second part that woke me up. It actually took friends from the outside to tell me what they saw.
What would they say? Like, how direct did it need to be?
I mean, it's interesting, because some of the friends only said things after the fact, because a lot of the time it was really behind the scenes, and it was so masked, and it was just a whole facade, right? One of my friends was incredibly direct, and our friendship suffered for a time, because she would call it out pretty directly in her stuff.
What would she say? Would she be like, you're in an abusive relationship?
Yeah, just like, this isn't right for you. She didn't use that terminology at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't even resonate with it. I was like, people say that to me, I was like, I'm not in an abusive, I was in total denial. It was.
What did you think your relationship was like at that point? What would you have called it?
This is the madness of it. I would have called it, I mean, I was struggling. It was exhausting. It was eroding my well-being in every way. But it was almost in that mindset, you feel like I just got to try a bit harder. I
Yeah.
just got to do a bit more. I just got to stick it out a bit longer maybe. And you're waiting for the change. And it's almost like this mountain you're climbing or some sort of project or challenge. It's just the most unbelievable mindset. But I've been there, and you don't, it's so hard to register with abuse because you've been through such consistent gaslighting of minimizing the behavior and the impact of the behavior on you. And that's part of the pattern you're in, like this Stockholm syndrome where you've built so much attachment to the person that's doing this.
Yeah.
To you as a survival strategy, it would be very dangerous for you to see them as that
Yeah.
in that moment because you can't get out in that moment.
Yeah.
So your brain's protecting you. But when you have when you're exposed to education resources like Dr. Ramani was a good one. There are all these podcasts and things online which are really brilliant that I can definitely recommend resources on that. But also friends saying, you know that that's not normal how you feel or what's happening there. I actually had someone call me up and be very direct and say, look, I know this is hard to hear, but that's coercive control. And
What is coercive control?
so this has actually recently been defined as illegal in Australia. It's like they passed legislation. This isn't the textbook definition, but it is that any way someone is actively seeking to control you in a relationship, overtly, covertly. A lot of this can be even financial
So
abuse.
like not giving you access to bank accounts and ability to like move things around and stuff.
And sabotaging any way that you can leave.
Yep.
And, restricting your freedoms. Like seeing certain people, even some particularly women can be in a position where they're not allowed to go and get a job. They're not allowed to have their own money because that would be their way out. Often people are stuck in these types of dynamics because they simply can't leave because they're financially dependent completely on their spouse.
That was another thing that I was really curious about is the barriers as you're in this waking up cycle and people are saying to you, this isn't normal. You've got another friend saying like, you should not be with this person and you're still kind of in that like exhausted phase, but this is my person and my security and my home and my love and my life. And you're kind of in that waking up phase. Like what are those key barriers? Like obviously there are the physical, like if you have a home together and finances together and if they're restricting elements of your autonomy and freedom in little ways, like what do you think are some of those big barriers?
To getting out?
Well, I guess to like fully waking up and acknowledging the dynamic as being abusive or toxic, but then also that's probably like a part 2, right? Like once you've
your strategy.
Once you've actually been like, okay, I'm in this. That strategy has got to be like another
whole thing. So part 1 is consistently exposing yourself to the truth and information through psychology or podcasts or any number of resources. If you have to, call a domestic violence hotline and say, hey, this is what's going on. I need an objective answer here. They're more likely to say yes because they're the hotline that's supporting people in that way. But you can bounce off people and say, hey, just objectively, this is what I'm experiencing. Is this just a normal relationship dynamic or is it something else? Consistently just checking yourself. Now we can even use things like ChatGPT to be like, hey, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much because that's a whole issue right now. But it's more about educating yourself and becoming aware objectively of what's actually happening for you, writing out what's happening for you and reading it back to yourself as if that's a friend. Would I consider this healthy and a relationship I'd want my daughter, son, or friend, whoever to be in, brother,
someone
sister
I love.
to be in? Exactly. That's a helpful exercise. So once you expose yourself to that enough, and that can take a long time, by the way. Because you go back into self-doubt and, I'm being dramatic or I'm oh no, what if I'm the problem? Or,
Yeah.
there are a number of thought patterns.
Yeah.
And
Or even
actually,
just like, would distracting yourself be one? Like just being
yeah,
busy with
head
other
in the
things.
sand.
Yeah.
Too hard.
Yeah,
Because it is
exactly.
hard.
Right. And when
Like,
you're like running like a business and you've got your career and you've got a bunch, like a really full life with a
yeah,
bunch of other stuff that
yeah,
you
yeah.
love going on, like it's the last thing you're going to want to deal with,
Same.
right?
Yeah, and it's difficult to that's the first step. Once you've sort of made the decision and you're fully aware of what's going on, you've accepted it, you've accepted the sunken cost potentially in this, and you're fully awakened, then the next step is a strategy for how do I make my way out of this. And
Yep.
for some people, this can take a bit longer because of the financial component. And there's a number of things that keep people in these. If they have children together, that's I'd imagine incredibly difficult. Um, Financially, they've got to get a strategy to start to become more independent, have their own income, support network,
Mhm.
all the resources around them, family and friends, and so on.
What were some of the like main barriers you had to like work through and address um to get out of this dynamic?
A couple, I've been in this like more than once as well, by the
Mhm.
way. So it was just this. It's only a place you can arrive to on your own. So it's choosing yourself and choosing self-respect and self-love and ultimately knowing you've got you. You can
Mm.
hold yourself through this because it's going to be hard to get out. Um, and cultivating that really strong mindset to be able to. Is this what you're asking me?
No, I meant more like I meant more like was like, for example, needing to move homes. You know, like those
Oh,
kind of
okay, practical
tangible
stuff.
when you're
Okay, yeah,
like
yeah,
when once you've kind of acknowledged. So like what I'm hearing is there's the
yeah,
phase of like first just getting that, well, firstly feeling the tension in yourself,
yeah,
starting to get the reflection from other
yeah,
people in your life.
yeah,
Something's not right
yeah,
here. Then you're moving into this phase of like, okay, I'm actually going to research this more and
yeah,
write down what I'm experiencing and not keep undermining it and pushing it down and kind of like focusing on other things. You're like, I'm actually going to get educated
yeah,
and just see if I might be in a dynamic like this.
yeah,
And then you've gotten to a point where you're like, all right, I know what I'm in.
yeah,
Like it feels overwhelming to know how to get out, but I'm like, yeah, that phase of like practical
yeah. Practical stuff.
planning.
Yeah,
Yeah, like what are some of the things
yeah,
that you had to, yeah, like moving home or
yeah,
I don't know, what was that like kind of strategy like?
yeah. And this will be different for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, it definitely starts with your really amping up the self care because you've got to be very mentally, physically strong and fit to
Mhm.
deal with this. You've got to be so powerful and so powerful that you can't be manipulated or controlled anymore.
Mm.
That's a whole thing, really. And then the practical steps, they take care of themselves because once from that place, you're then ready to, because you're not in denial anymore, actually talk to people
Yeah.
and seek out support from your support network
Mhm.
professionally. For those that are in the fortunate position to have the financial resources to leave, um, it's pretty straightforward. But depending on the level of the abuse, if someone has a propensity for violence, then you have to kind of be very careful about how you leave because the statistics say that actually most of the homicides in this situation are when they try to leave or
Mm.
after they've left. So that's a whole thing, and I'm mindful of my duty of care here to not definitely call the domestic hotlines. They'll help you through this.
Mm.
They're amazing. Um, if you don't currently have the financial resources to leave, then again, building that independence, is there some way you can open up a bank account and start to make some money of your own in some way
Mhm.
or seek financial support from, there are resources, government resources, there are those things available in these scenarios to help with that. And community, family and friends.
Yeah.
There's always a way through.
Yeah.
It's just, it takes a lot of courage and grit to get there, but there's
Yeah.
always a way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we're at 30. How do we feel?
I guess I wanted to also ask you if I was sitting like in the place of where you were at,
Yeah.
if there would be any advice you would give to
Yeah.
me.
Okay, I'll talk to you directly as if you're
Yeah.
in it. The things that will keep your true north there and get you out of this and into something far better, a far better situation for yourself, remembering that this will not change. There's always that hope, that thought pattern of it can, maybe it will one day. It's not going to change. The data's in, it doesn't. The only thing you can do is unfortunately get out, and the sooner the better. The other part is whenever you have self-doubt or you question whether this really is that bad, or you have these moments like that, just refer back to that letter you wrote yourself where you wrote everything else down and put yourself in the position of your friend reading it, and that will keep you there, and that it's all going to be okay, and this isn't normal. It's just been normalized for you, and this isn't how relationships are. This isn't normal. I think that's a really important thing to know, because you've normalized it, and this is likely generational. This has been a long, conditioning process for you. This likely started early on, probably,
Mhm.
and you're going to get out of this and then look back and be like, I can't believe I was in that. But just also have a lot of compassion for yourself, because this is no fault of your own. Sometimes people can feel really stupid. How did I get manipulated like that?
Yeah.
This can happen to anyone, and it does every single day. And once you're aware of what's happening, then you can get out and it's going to work out. But stick with it. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
like, what do you have to look forward to on the other side?
Yeah. So this is a major thing.
Yeah. And
because
like the quicker you get out, right? The quicker you name it and acknowledge it,
yeah,
and you're like, holy shit,
less
maybe
time you
I'm
waste.
in it. Like, it's going to take an enormous amount of energy to make a change. But like, what do you have to look forward to? Like, how is life different?
Yeah. So this is a common thing, because I've had this conversation with friends, with the fear of leaving, especially when you've invested so much time,
Mm.
is like sunken cost fallacy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you spent a ton of money on a plane ticket and I told you that that plane was definitely going to crash, like 100%, you knew it was going to crash, would you be like, well, I'm going to get on it anyway because the plane ticket was so expensive? No, you wouldn't. It's like the
It's a good
sunken cost
analogy.
fallacy.
Yeah.
And business as well. Like,
Yeah.
you have to make those calls. Should we just keep putting money into throwing good money after bad? No. So this logic needs to be applied to our relationships. And so what I will say is, all in good time, everything is well and wisely set. You leave when you're meant to leave. It's great. It's all part of it. Okay. No, you can feel that grief and regret of, oh my God, I can't believe I wasted so much time. Don't worry about that. What I will say is, once you do get out, a beautiful life is waiting on the other side. But those that have the courage to step into that are rewarded. So even your abuser may say to you, you will never find anyone else. No one's going to want you. Or
Yeah.
I've had all that.
They'll pick at all your pain
Like,
points.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I had said
Yeah.
to me, anyone that you're with is just going to cheat on you and you're never going to. And I'm like, okay, luckily I didn't believe that.
Yeah. But I
And
imagine at the time that can be so painful, right? They're just throwing out anything they can to
yeah. And luckily
keep
by
you
that
in.
stage, I was just like, yeah, that's just your bullshit talk.
Yeah. You'd already
I
clocked
was like, all right,
yeah.
yeah, okay. But I tell you what, once you've really done the work and healed, no one is ever going to manipulate you again. You'll become so powerful. And I can speak from experience. I can absolutely say to you, once you've been through something like that, you clock things in a heartbeat, like you sniff it out. No one, never again. And you can also be the shining light for other people. And you have broken a generational pattern, and you've transformed so much that what you're then attracting into your life after having done that deep work on yourself is much higher grade, and you're able to see what's possible, and you're able to experience what healthy love can look and feel like in your body, not just as a concept, but a lived experience, which takes getting used to.
Yeah,
Actually.
exactly. Well, yeah, if the old baseline is like, I think you said
Yeah.
exhaustion,
And hypervigilance and fear and anxiety.
anxiety, like what is
What does
what's your
healthy love
new
feel like?
baseline? Yeah.
And maybe this is a segue into what does conscious, healthy relating actually look like
Yeah.
and feel like?
Yeah.
Because a healthy relationship, what that feels like coming from someone who's experienced both. So I've experienced being in both a toxic, unhealthy, abusive dynamic, and I've also thankfully experienced really beautiful, healthy love. And the difference is that there's a baseline of peace. There's a baseline of implicit trust, and you feel free to communicate as opposed to self-censoring. And there's just a real safety to be yourself and a freedom to be yourself without being monitored or cut down or questioned. And transitioning into this, at first, I would be like, is everything okay? You know, when things are a little bit too chill.
Yeah.
Which is normal. That can feel like the calm before the storm or the subtle building phase in a toxic dynamic, because you're just waiting for the other person to kind of do something, and then that never happens, and that feels really weird.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on?
Why is everything so good?
Is this too good to be true? Because normally in that dynamic, when things feel too good to be true, they are.
Yeah.
They're too good to be true.
Yeah.
And so when you get into something that you feel blessed to be experiencing, you're waiting for that part, like the nasty surprise, your hopes getting built up and then cut down.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen, then your whole system has to recalibrate.
Yeah. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, totally.
I was just thinking, like, at the beginning we talked about the difference between like a bit of a like shit person, dickhead, like just difficult personality, but still maybe potentially the right relationship and overall like, you know, not abusive, like really making that distinction between actually the abuse cycle.
Yeah.
Or being with someone who just has some narcissistic traits.
Yeah.
I imagine that when you need to have repair conversations, there's going to be a really big distinction here. So what is like, because all relationships are going to have tricky moments, tensions, the need for repair conversations, right? What is that experience like in a healthy relationship, and how is it different?
Such a good question, because I used to think, you know, when people say all relationships are hard. Yeah. And then that would be the thing I would be like, yeah, all relationships are hard. The hard's not meant to be the person. It's meant to be the hard. So
I don't understand what you just said.
Like, so people are like, relationships are all hard.
Yeah, I get that bit.
I thought that my hard was dealing with the person being the challenge rather than you two facing the challenges together as a unit.
Okay, that's such a good distinction.
Gets you stuck so badly. So the difference between healthy, now I've experienced both, the difference between a unhealthy repair or repair that is based on manipulation and control in an abuse cycle versus healthy repair is in an unhealthy dynamic, repair is promises of change and it's excessive, and there's maybe some crocodile tears or groveling and all that sort of stuff, and it's fake emotion, so it can seem genuine, and you may not realize at the time, but the proof is in the pudding. So either change is non-existent or doesn't sustain, and you're back to the same old thing, and that just repeats, and it doesn't really mean anything if you're going to apologize profusely but make no effort to change something. Well, that doesn't make sense. In a healthy dynamic, if you have a conversation with someone and you express to each other in a healthy way, by the way, like you're not meant to be yelling at your partner, demanding something. It's on both sides to say, hey, I feel like this, and when you said that, that made me feel like X, and I would really appreciate if you didn't do that, or can we change this? The person, if it's a healthy repair, is they're going to hear you, validate your experience, take accountability for their part. Both partners will take accountability, and then they will do whatever they can to make the change and repair things with you, whatever that looks like. And that will probably be it. You won't have to keep having the same conversation time and time and time again.
That's such a good point in
Yeah.
itself. It's like if
Yeah.
you're coming back to the same thing time
Yeah.
and time and time again, repair is not working.
It's not working because it's working for them, because
Mm.
it's a manipulation tactic. And
Mm.
I had to swallow this really hard truth pill, which is that I'd always be like, why do they just not change? Like, why it's so easy. Why don't they just, it doesn't make any sense. It's hurting everyone. It doesn't work. It's because that strategy is a survival strategy and that's their operating system, and it works for them to control and manipulate other people.
Yeah.
That's just what they do.
Yeah. And I think earlier you mentioned that well, I guess I'm curious about in these dynamics, like how much do you think the person in the position of the abuser is actually being intentional about any of this, right?
Mm.
Like you've also said the term operating system, like
Yeah.
sometimes it might feel too far to think like they're kind of planning this or aware of what they're doing or like really calculated about it. But could it also be that they're kind of just functioning in these patterns, like you said, that are working
Mm.
for them? And so
Mm.
maybe that's also an easier way for you to accept they're just not going to change
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's working for them.
Yeah.
And if they've shown you it's like they're not necessarily like planning it all out consciously,
Yeah.
but still, if they're not changing, they're not changing. And
Exactly. So this is a really common, I just want to introduce this book. So it's called What is Even Abuse? And it's by it's beautifully written by this woman. It's pretty much dog-eared at this point. But yeah, Emma Rose Byham. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. So in this book, that question comes up so much. So for people that are trying to wrap their heads around these dynamics, they're like, but do they mean it? Because you think to yourself, if someone can't help something or they don't mean it, that puts you in the position of therapist, helper, caregiver, kind of you're empathetic towards them. You go into that role of, oh, but they can't help it, so I can't really set a boundary or get mad at them. That's how they are. But what's covered in the psychology and in this book, which is really interesting, is that they do know what they're doing. And it is intentional. And that's a really hard thing to accept because you go, how that seems monstrous. However, the reason why it kind of makes sense and neutralizes that charge of that point of view a little bit is because I realized they do know what they're doing. They're fully aware of what they're doing, and it's to control, manipulate. But their default operating system is such that is just how they see the world. So it's in a very transactional way. It's rooted in survival. It's how can I get people to do things for me? They're aware of what they're doing, but what I don't believe they're aware of is that deep impact that they're having on other people, because their survival and their strategies are so front and center and have likely been built in childhood as their own coping mechanisms for their own stuff, that the suffering of others barely registers because their own deep suffering is so enormous. I mean, can you imagine what it would feel like to be in that mindset of, I've got to continuously be scheming and controlling others? That seems so exhausting to me.
Yeah.
And not to kind of condone anything, or say the behavior is okay. Absolutely not. But we just need to recognize that that's where they're at. And for us trying to expect change from that, they're just living a different reality.
Totally. Yeah. I think this is a really important part of the conversation because this discussion is to like generate awareness, right?
Yeah.
And like understand these dynamics better. And it is a good check to kind of like put yourself in their shoes. It's like if you're calling someone or checking in on them, like monitoring them constantly, yeah, you kind of got to be in a whole frame of mind where for some reason that feels right to you to be doing that.
Exactly.
And then see that okay, they are aware of what they're doing. They're in that pattern. They're choosing that. And
They don't know how to be
yeah,
any other way, because
yeah.
it's how I was explaining this to a friend the other day, was that imagine trying to convince you and I just to become bank robbers tomorrow. It's like, I mean, no,
It sounds like a
no,
kind of fun
but it's like
adventure.
okay, maybe I should give another example.
Give me another example.
But yeah, it's like imagine trying to convince us to act like that. We'd have
Like
a
what?
really hard time.
Yeah, we would.
That would be exhausting and so unnatural for us. That's not how we're wired. This is personality. Like, we're not wired to want to do that. Like, that would feel
You
terrible,
are
right?
talking to an actor.
Right. But the point I'm making is that when something is so natural and it's your default operating system, it's your personality, pretty hard to change that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a level of acceptance with that. We don't want to necessarily enter into that drama triangle of demonizing someone. We want to always take responsibility for ourselves, our lives, be in our own power. However, we need to recognize that there are a lot of different animals in the animal kingdom, okay? There are elephants and leopards and ants and little puppy dogs. And
sloths.
let's just be realistic about who we're choosing to cozy up to. Are we going to go and hang out and cozy up to an alligator? Well, that's just like ridiculous.
Well, it's like just be honest with yourself that you're choosing the alligator,
Right.
and what that means for your life and your
Right.
energy and your health and everything else.
Yeah. And if you're going to choose that, and this is where the awareness comes in, the awareness needs to be established, which is why so many, my experience anyway, was learning to meditate, expanding my awareness and my consciousness state to see things more clearly as they are instead of being in delusion.
Yeah.
And so going, hey, I can still have love and acceptance for that person, but there's a strong boundary. I don't want to be cohabitating in a relationship with that. That's when I don't want to be flippant about this or oversimplify it, but just to give a playful analogy is that we need to recognize that there are many different human beings on this planet and they all have different nature. And, we're all different archetypes, aren't we? So, hey, and that invites conscious choice.
Yeah, choice. That's the empowerment part, like bringing the choice back in.
Yeah.
Naming what's actually there then gives
Yeah.
us the opportunity to choose from a baseline of truth rather than from a baseline of avoidance and not having any clarity.
Yeah. And if you're in something where you are in the role of the victim, let's just say, you're playing a role in that dynamic. Whereas if you step out of that completely, feel the shift. Like, it's so much more empowering. And this is not at all victim blaming or anything like that whatsoever. But I'm just saying my personal experience is that it's just acknowledging the truth, and it's being really radically honest with yourself, and it's saying, hey, life's short. I've got to make the most of this thing. I am the creator, the author, the main character in this play. What should that character do? I'm not going to waste time. This is just madness. And not always easy to do, and also not always easy to get out again. But what I will say is that in a healthy relationship, someone's biggest fear is hurting you. But in an unhealthy relationship, their biggest fear is losing you. They want to just control and keep you because they've projected their own lack of divinity or all these qualities they see in you, putting you on this pedestal as this golden egg they need to keep. They've disowned that in themselves. So they have a deep sense of toxic shame, and then they're projecting onto you this person they need to keep because everything will be okay if I keep that person. They don't, caring about your well-being and how you feel is secondary to that. Whereas in a healthy dynamic, I mean, you feel awful if you hurt your partner.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. I think that's really a key thing, and maybe like a nice thing to like wrap this up on as well.
Yeah.
It's like, be honest about how you are feeling and prioritize how you are feeling, and know that in a healthy relationship, the other person cares about how you are feeling
Yeah.
genuinely,
Yeah.
whatever that is, and how their actions are impacting that.
Yeah.